Stuart Goldsmith, and this is the home on YouTube of my Comedian's Comedian podcast. Now, everybody knows Russell Howard. He's one of the most colossal and very, very funny comedians working on the circuit today, but he hasn't always been that good. We're going to talk here in this short clip about his comedy upbringings, his pals in comedy, and how he used to be a bit weird on stage. Mostly on stage. Here's Russell.
So where are you now? Where do we find you in comedy at the moment? You said you've been doing loads of PR yesterday, loads of promo stuff. Is that for Stand Up Central?
Yeah. So I just did some interviews yesterday to promote that, and I am just about to go on a tour, like a travel show with my mum of America, and then after that I'm getting ready for my tour.
Okay.
Of my proper tour, which is in 2017.
So that's the next. That's Wonderbox is concluded.
All done, yeah, done ages ago, yeah.
Okay.
So this is, and so I currently have nothing for the show because I kind of spent the last 2 months writing stuff for Comedy Central, and now that's gone. So now I've got to start again. So.
Well, talk to me about that.
So I currently have nothing.
Well, this is it.
I lost it all in a week. It was so weird. It was so... You spend 2 months and you kind of... I was gigging every night. I was writing every day, and I was kind of really felt good and really enjoyed stand-up. Was really loving it. And then you just see it all go in a week, and then you're like, fuck, I've got to do it again.
Is there any... Like, when the show goes out, will the director say, or will the producer say, we didn't use that bit, you've still got that? Or are you interested in using anything?
I have the edit, so I've already had that. So there's a couple of bits. There's maybe about 5 minutes that I can save, but they were kind of 5 minutes that weren't really good enough. Okay. So that's why they were cut. So
yeah.
So
but presumably, if they weren't good enough now, by 2017 they could be good enough if there's a kernel or something.
Maybe. There's definitely one bit that I think is kind of interesting. I just couldn't quite get. Actually, it's not that it didn't work. It just didn't work on TV.
Yeah,
it's a really interesting thing where, so when you watch it back, certain things leap out, and certain things just seem kind of baggy, and particularly I'm only doing like 5 minutes at the top, which so you. Approaching Comedy Central, you have to do there's 10 episodes and I've got to do 10 fives, so I have to kind of write singles rather than an album. So it's kind of weird, so you have to make it go from 0 to 60 as quick as possible and kind of resolve itself, and certain bits in a kind of an hour and a half set are really nice, and you kind of go, so now I'm going to talk about this, and it feels but from starting they suddenly look quite kind of boring and flabby is the way, so you just kind of cut that, move that.
Sure. So I did, funnily enough, and I was talking, having been on the show the other week.
Did very well.
And thank you. And having talked about the process like before, and I put a bit on on this podcast of like, right, this is what I'm thinking about so-and-so, and I did a little kind of audio diary afterwards as well.
Okay.
Like, case in point, I did that stuff about dementia.
Yes.
And that stuff is not, you would not open a show with that.
Yes.
You know, it's exactly that. It's like, here's 5 really interesting, funny, kind of bittersweet minutes.
Yes.
Which actually they're not really a calling card, and they're certainly not an opening 5. So is that sort of similar to what you mean? You've got like a 5, I don't mean about my stuff, but I mean exactly that. But then the problem I have to then do is I have to introduce the night, I have to explain the concept, and then I have to sort of get into something but not talk to the crowd, because that always looks awful on TV. Yeah.
So I have to kind of suddenly go, so let's talk about, and it's very different from good news. You have the news, so you can kind of go, so what's been happening, and then
so that's half a sentence, isn't it? And then we're
completely, and we have a clip that explains what's happening, and then I'm funny off the clip. So it's, you sort of don't. I didn't realise how easily digestible good news is in comparison to stand-up, because you have to say, so here's what I've been thinking about, and here are my jokes on this subject. Do you understand the subject?
Yeah.
Like it really, for TV, it's a very different thing. Whereas if you're in a live room, you can just, you can have a chat with someone in the front row, you can get things going, you can sort of, so that after 10 minutes you're cooking and everything, you've set up a few things in the room, you've established you're funny with a bit of kind of witter about the local area or whatever, or some guy in the front row said something, or it's been and you're there. But you kind of can't do that on stand-up on TV, because you have to convince the people instantly sat on the sofa not to turn over. So, let's get going. So it has to kind of start like that.
And you are pretty far from being a one-liner comic.
Yes.
So in your kind of origin in comedy, you were. So did someone?
Origin.
Your origin. So I think someone said, I didn't know this, but did you start off purely improvising?
Or
is that a bum steer?
No. I started when I was 18, and I basically, well, actually, I'd been writing jokes from the age of 15, and when I was 17, I thought I'm going to do it, and I went to Jester's in Bristol, which is now a Tesco Metro. And I literally
destroyed that building.
Exactly.
Tesco.
I went there and I had pages of jokes that I'd written, and I went on a Saturday afternoon. I just rocked up and knocked on the door, and it took so much courage to kind of go, I'll do the gig tonight. I didn't realise, I had no idea that obviously that wasn't going to happen. And they went, well, you can't. And I went, well, but I'm here. And they kind of went, well, and there was a guy actually that said, oh, there's an open spot circuit and look for that. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I kind of found out about...
Well, trying to pretend you knew about that.
I didn't know.
Oh, you mean open spots? Yes, of course. Yeah.
But I thought I'd sort of made the decision to do it. And then so I got the bus home, was slightly disappointed. And then went to a comedy club in Bristol that's now defunct as well. It was called Virgin Mirth, and I watched it. And there was a man eating a spoon with a banana, and he was singing a theme tune to the Sweeney, and it was kind of like the tail end of kind of alternative comedy. Do you know what I mean? So it was sort of 1998. This is, and there were these kind of wild, strange guys, and I sort of watched it and thought, I can't be this bad. Surely I'll be okay. And then kind of went on, did it the next week, and then for about 6 months had kind of material that was I kind of remember, it was very kind of, wishy-washy, very kind of, I said this bit about like, oh, how did Captain Kirk get through the Star Trek episodes without flicking Spock's ears? Like, so the kind of,
okay.
And then I'd react if people laughed. Oh, that's an interesting laugh. And naturally, after 6 months, I'd seen Ross Noble, I'd seen Phil Kay, I'd seen Justin Lee Collins, who used to do loads of improv, and I just ditched material, so I didn't do anything. I had no material for the next probably 3 years. So when I did So You Ain't Funny, I was in the semi-final, it was completely improvised. I went on and kissed the baby and kind of just riffed with the front row, and was so at ease doing that. I just found it so much simpler than writing jokes. And then about, I don't know, maybe it's when I was about 22, I kind of started, I felt like I could perform, and then I began to learn how to write comedy.
So if you in So You Think Funny improvised and got through the semis, and the thing they always say to you in that competition is do your stuff again at the final.
Yeah. I had nothing. Yeah,
you had nothing. So how did the final go? I don't remember your
final went all right.
Did you win?
No.
Who was
I was in with Jimmy Carr, and I'd met Jimmy the day previously, and he looked me up and down. This is the first time we met. He looked me up and down and went, "My God, I bet you've been on a lot of caravanning holidays." And he was right. And Josie was in it, Josie Long. David O'Doherty was in it. A comedian called Eric Petrosian, Juliet Cowan, Andy Zoltzman, and I forget the others. And it went really well, actually. I think just because I was a kid, and I looked really young, so I was 18, and I was super excited to be there. So I kind of think they kind of laughed, oh, isn't he nice, type thing.
Yeah.
And I kind of spoke about the festival, and I remember the day of the final, I saw a guy dragging a toilet down the Royal Mile, and he was painted blue, and it made me laugh, and that was what my set was about. And it was like this kind of, only in Edinburgh, Christ, you imagine doing that in the... So it was... Yeah. I basically did a bit of local that I'd seen in the day for the final, and it was quite funny. So when you say like imagine that's kind of like a comedy trope, isn't it? Take an idea and go, I saw it in this context, imagine that in that context. Yeah.
So were you, when you were riffing, were you sort of naturally discovering those sorts of techniques to go, imagine if aliens saw this concept, what they'd make of it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I guess so. I've never really thought about it, but I was just 18 and just instinctively doing whatever, that's what struck me in that moment. You would never see that
in the high street in Bristol, and yet here it was fine. So yeah, I guess I kind of stumbled upon, kind of tricks, and yeah, that was it really.
So that period, I just want to stay with that period for a moment of like 2 or 3 years of turning up to gigs. I mean, that must have been...
It was brilliant.
I mean, it must have been great, because you don't have to worry about writing anything. Like, the whole point of this show is, Jesus, there's a blank page, what do I do?
But also, I was at university, and it was just great, so I'd just rock up and I'd just kind of go at it. And I'd seen Phil Kay and I'd seen Ross.
That's a great pedigree to go. That's the thing.
Well, exactly. And so I was in, and I was very lucky when I was, how old was I? I think I was 19, and I got to support Phil Kay on tour. Me and James Dowdeswell supported him on tour, and it was incredible. So I did 10 gigs with him. I was getting 50 quid a gig, and it was amazing. And I basically took a week off university to do it. And it was an incredible apprenticeship, because you sort of saw him do stuff. He was so fearless, and it was so interesting to me as a incredibly normal, boring, bland young man to go, oh my, you can be anyone. They don't know who you are. You can just leap into the room and just be mad and be wild. So I had a real sort of fixation on. I dyed my hair blue. And I just kind of wanted to be incredible. I was a kid. I was like 19, and I just wanted to be different and not of this earth, and just kind of I didn't want to do material. I want to just I used to like walk on tables and kind of go through people's drinks, and it was a complete rip-off, a poor rip-off of
what... we go through their bags and take their drinks?
All that kind of stuff.
Go through their drinks.
Sorry, what did I say? I meant as in, I just like, whatever they had on the table. But, I was just kind of relentlessly trying to be kind of mad and weird.
So were you aware when you did So You Think You're Funny, and you're up against... I mean, there couldn't be a comic that's more the opposite of that than Jimmy.
Yeah.
So when you stood in that back room, the scary back room in the Gilded Hall, Gilded Balloon debating hall...
The best thing about that back room bit is that Zaltzman, Andy went on first, and then I think Josie was on second, and then it was me. And in the space of that, and we were only doing like 5 minutes, Zaltzman was shit-faced by the time we got back. And it was just like... I was like, how have you got drunk that quickly?
But you must have been aware, like, hang on, I'm the only person here who's planning to go out there and make up everything. But I wasn't, because I had a bit of stuff about the toilet. Oh, okay.
So in that instance, I was going to chat about that, and I think I had one other bit, but then I had 3 minutes to fill. So do you know what I mean?
Okay, so you've got some ideas, some concepts in your back pocket of like, I'll probably talk about the toilet guy.
Yeah,
I'll probably talk about something else. The rest will just come.
Yeah. But just the madness of youth, right? It's just like, so Thierry Henry says that you're not frightened of taking a penalty when you're 18 because you've never missed. Mm-hmm. And it was exactly how I felt. I mean, I'd never dream of doing that now. Of like going on, like, imagine doing Jimmy Fallon and going, I'll wing it for 3. But
it's sort of the same, isn't it? In terms of the
I'd never missed before, so I wasn't going to miss.
Yeah.
So it was fine. So I wasn't kind of nervous because,
So what
I'd seen
was
a guy
the
with
first
a toilet.
For tour dates, news, updates, whatever they are, and the latest episodes of the Comedian's Comedian podcast, go to stuartgoldsmith.com.